came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. We made the decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrong. 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all those defects of character. 7. We humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. We made a list of all persons that we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. We continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
We've got the other side to that.
This sounds like a big order.
Thank you.
And we can't do it all at once. We didn't become addicted in one day, so remember, easy does it. There is one thing more than anything else that will defeat us in our recovery. This is an attitude of indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. 3 of these that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. We feel that the approach to the disease of addiction is completely realistic, for the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. We feel that our way is practical, for one addict can best understand and help another addict. We believe that the sooner we face our problems within our society in everyday living, just that much faster do we become acceptable, responsible, and productive members of that society. The only way to keep from returning to active addiction is not to take that first drug. If you're like us, you know that 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. We put great emphasis on this, for we know that when we use drugs in any form or substitute one for the other, we release our addiction all over again. Thinking of alcohol as different from other drugs has caused a great many addicts to relapse. Before we came to NA, many of us viewed alcohol separately, but we cannot afford to be confused about this. Alcohol is a drug. We are people with the disease of addiction who must abstain from all drugs in order to recover.
Thank you. We're now going to have a moment's silence to remember why we're here and to be respectful to other addicts, and then Mickey's going to share. When you're ready, Mick.
Hi everybody, my name's Mickey Bush and I'm a fully conceded addict. ADD, ICT, anybody doing drugs in compulsive trouble. That's my description of an addict. Addiction, ADD, ICTION. Anybody doing drugs in compulsive trouble is our newcomer. I give that description because I don't go along with the description that NA give in its reading. An addict is anybody whose life is controlled by drugs. I like the correctness. My son's life is controlled by drugs. He's not an addict. He's a diabetic. I happen to know several other people who are HIV positive and AIDS and other things. Their life is controlled by cocktails of drugs. They're not addicts. So I would like to correct these things. But an addict is anybody in compulsive trouble. And that's what an addict is. And that's what I am. That's what I was until January 15th, 1983. close to 28 years in recovery, and I'm thrilled and delighted about that. And you know, if anybody doesn't think that time is important or time doesn't mean anything around here, let them try and get some. Let them try and get down the road a piece, you know, and it might change your mind. I get a big fat feeling about being in recovery and the development of recovery over the years. It's more thrilling and more exhilarating to me today to be among you than it's ever been. And you know, if you were to ask me when was the last 2 days in a row that I didn't go to a meeting, I wouldn't be able to take your money. So I live in Los Angeles. I live in Santa Monica, as a matter of fact, in part of Los Angeles. I'm from northwest London originally, and I'm not going to do a usual chair or a long-winded talk, because I'm a long-winded guy. I could stand up here and pontificate for 10 hours. In fact, if I get on a roll, you could send out for breakfast. But, you know, I'll just touch on a few simple points that I think are not really covered very frequently. Drugs, D-R-U-G-S, devil's revenge upon God's subjects. You know, and I always drank the drug alcohol. I always drank the drug alcohol. I never only drank it, but I always drank it. When we were putting the text together, I voted against that little saying that we read out here today, thinking of alcohol as being different. You know, the mere fact that we mention it makes it different. And it's not different. It's a drug, and I always drank the drug alcohol. You know, I am to put great emphasis on powerlessness. Powerless people can't work the steps. And if you're an addict and can't work the steps, you're fucked. So I don't know why we go around frequently claiming powerlessness, powerless, everybody's powerless. In our first episodes we admitted we were powerless and my life had become unmanageable. Not that I am powerless and it is unmanageable. Ain't nobody right here, right now, powerless over their addiction. I know it's lip-flapping party line bullshit that we say when we claim powerlessness, but we're not. Nobody here. I got so much power over my addiction today, as long as I stay here with you, being a small part of this great whole, doing what we do around here. When you ask people about powerlessness, they tell you what happens to them and what the consequences of being powerless, but not what powerless is. Everybody can tell you they're powerless and admit their powerlessness, and everybody can tell you what happens to them because they're powerless, and everybody can tell you the consequence and the results of being powerless. But ask them what powerless is, and they don't know. I think it's essential. See, powerlessness, if you think about it, the very word gives you a clue. Powerless. Powerless. I have no power in my life to combat the disease of addiction. Why do I need a power in my life? Why do I need a power in my life? Well, number one, of course, is because I haven't got it. Why do I need a power? Because I haven't got one. What do I need it to do? I need it to combat the power of the disease that I'm up against and has got me by the short ones and got me in the grips, you know, that I can't beat in and of myself. So powerless. I have no power. Well, what's the power over everything? We've decided that he either is or he isn't, and the power over everything, the power and the source over everything is God. God is the source and God is the power over everything. Whatever form of God you have is okay with us. Nobody has any truck with anybody's preference along these lines. You can call it God, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Muhammad, or whatever other noun you want to use. You know, nobody has any truck with anybody's preference along these lines. If you don't like the word God, call it bloody Mashikinovich. If you like, nobody cares. Just as long as there's some form of power that makes some sense to you, that you can understand, and that you can come to rely on to combat the power of the disease. Here, right now, in this little band that we have right here, and certainly in the convention that we just come out of, is a power greater than myself. Me plus you is a power greater than me. You plus us is a power greater than me. Together we can do what I couldn't do alone. I couldn't stay clean, you couldn't stay clean, but together we can stay clean. We can do what I couldn't do. Here's a power right here, right now. We don't have to claim powerlessness anymore. Not as long as we stick together, not as long as we stay here doing these small, simple, basic things to enable us to live this wonderful way of life. This power that's of God and from God and provided by God, but isn't God. This power that we have right here, right now. I liken it to the water that we drink. H2O is the formula for water. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, water, life-sustaining. That's what we got here. 2 addicts, 1 God, power over addiction. That's what we got right here, right now. We just had several thousand people in that room. If there wasn't a power in that room enabling several thousand addicts to be clean right here, right now, and if we really suffer from a disease that makes us do what we already don't want to do, and we can't not do it just because we don't want to, when we come out of that room, we'd have to have a use-up. If we haven't got a power that we can take with us, and if we haven't got a power that we can rely on, when we come out here, that disease we got would make us do what we already don't want to do, and we'd all have to have a use-up. I got a feeling that the Dead Sea isn't ready for several thousand addicts to go out and get loaded tonight. But that's what would happen if we didn't have a power. So we must have a power. We must have a power right here, right now. So why do we deny it by saying I'm powerless, powerless, powerless? Everybody claims they're powerless. I don't do that. I don't teach my troops to do that either. You know, we recognise that we have a power, and we become firmly conscious contacted with that power. That power that I didn't have when I got here on January the 15th, 1983. But I learnt about and brought, to consciousness. Today I do. I didn't know that this disease, long before I got here, had gotten me to abandon God and spirituality, so that along the path of life, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly, the disease becomes all-powerful in my life, dictating and dominating everything I say, do, think and feel. I didn't know that when I got here. I didn't know that I was helpless, hopeless and powerless to resist its demands. But I learned here. I learned here what the consequences were and what the result of my life was. And I didn't bring that in here with me. I didn't come in here with any foreknowledge. But I do today. I have a power greater than myself that I absolutely understand and makes complete sense to me that I can depend upon to not have to use no matter what. And that God doesn't protect me from the storm, He protects me in the storm. He protects me in the storm, not from the storm. And if you stay clean around here any length of time, you will hit some storms. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Can you hear me out there?
Yes.
Okay. Don't fall asleep, Robbie. You see, sometimes we think that being clean and being in Narcotics Anonymous, we shouldn't have to face difficulties and we shouldn't have to have consequences. But of course we do. We have divorces, we have deaths, we have financial woes, relationship problems. God don't prevent those things. What He does is give us a wonderful way of life so that when those things happen, we don't have to have a use-up over them. That's what we got here. We got a way of life so that no matter what happens, we don't have to use over it. A lot of people don't seem to grasp that. They don't seem to grasp the fact that this beautiful, wonderful way of life is a way of living where we don't have to use no matter what. I do. And I don't have to use because I depend on that power that I learned about here. The power that combats the power of addiction. And if you're not using today, the disease it doesn't stop progressing. My disease is nearly 28 years worse, not better. people get some time around here and they think that time makes them better. It doesn't. We get worse, not better. The disease doesn't stop progressing because we stop using. But what happens is a person comes along and they get some time around here and they cut back or stop doing what enabled them to get the time. You know, perhaps they went to 3 or 4 meetings in the beginning, perhaps they had a couple of service commitments, perhaps they put $1 in the basket, perhaps they read the text, perhaps they worked with a sponsor and worked with other sponsees. All of a sudden they get some time and they get busy and they cut back on their meetings. Perhaps they haven't read the text in a while, perhaps they don't even stay very close to their sponsor, perhaps they say, I haven't got any sponsees because no one's asked me, etc., etc., etc. So as they get some time around here and the disease is getting worse, they do less. Now that's just dumb. That ain't even addictive, that's dumb. You know, I'd rather be an addict than a dummy. See, and that, as that disease gets more progressive and we start doing less, I got to do as much or more to stay clean as it took to get clean. And it seems that a lot of people don't really realise that. Oh, they go to conventions, they check their meetings once in a while, but ask them if they read the text today. Yeah, ask them if they're doing the program. No, fallen away. I think it's a crying shame. But anyway, you know, that's a talk for another topic for another talk. Today I'll just wind up with my topic of powerlessness. Powerlessness isn't what I do because I'm powerless. Powerlessness isn't the consequence and the results of being powerless. Oh, people think it is and they'll say it is, but it's not. Powerless is the absence of power. And if God, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Muhammad, or whatever other noun you want to use is that power, you don't have it when you get here. And so I have to turn back to it, and I didn't know that I turned away from it. Anyway, on a very basic concept, that's what I wanted to say today, and bear in mind that I can absolutely promise you that one of the things that I'm most grateful for is that I don't get, you know, what I deserve. If I got what I deserve, thank God for mercy, not justice. Namaste. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Mickey.